Overwatch 1 will never be played professionally again, leaving many fans to wonder just who was the greatest player of all time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Spoiler alert, this is not an easy question to answer. Overwatch was a very new type of game when it came out, and there was lots of changes and balance patches that really ended some promising players' careers. Not to mention that the team nature of the game means that some players just get held back by their teams, and there's nothing they can do about it. And certain roles, especially main tank and main support, it's really hard to stand out on a bad team. For example, in Season 1, Fearless on the Shanghai Dragons looked like one of the worst Winston players in the game, and he just died a lot, his stats were terrible. But then in 2020, he was back on the Shanghai Dragons again with a much better team around him, and he looked like one of the best Winston players in the whole league and had the best regular season record. So, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the list.
In the field being bullied for his shorts, but Brett Fleder now moving over onto the Widowmaker, taking the clutch into his own hands. The headshot after headshot after headshot. I do not believe what we have just witnessed. The Shanghai Dragons are elite.
I'm starting the list with Fleda because he's the only player in Overwatch who has a stat named after him, the Fleda deadlift. This comes from his early days in OG and Apex on a team called Flash Lux. The team never made it out of group stages. They were pretty bad, despite Fleda's best efforts. An Overwatch stats website at the time called Winston's Lab found that in a game between Flash Lux and MVP Space that Flash Lux lost, Fleda had more than 50% of his team's final blows. So since then, a flooded deadlift describes when a player gets more than 50% of their team's final blows, and there have been no flooded deadlifts since then over an entire series, and only a few players have got one in a map. So, after that, he moved to a team called Lunatic High, where he won his first major, with the OGN Soul Cup, I believe. And then that team moved into Owl as the Soul Dynasty, but that team never really had huge success. They did alright in a couple of the stage tournaments. But even though Soul wasn't doing great, you could still tell that Fleda was having tons of impact. He was getting lots of kills, like doing more than anyone else on his team. Then later that year, he was on the World Cup with Team South Korea, and they did not drop a map that year. And then 2019, he moved to the Shanghai Dragons, where things really turned around for him because that team had much better players around him to support him. So they won 2 of the 3 stage tournaments and got second in the other, and Fleda got the regular season MVP award. They finished that season with the best regular season record and 3rd in the playoffs. And in season 4, a similar thing happened again. They won 2 of 4 stage tournaments, and they were runner-up in one of them. And again, they had the best regular season, and this time they managed to win the playoffs.
Spawn much closer for Philly. Is this the secret weapon for the London Spitfire? Is this the answer to their problem? Neptuno's down again. The Herald disaster generally for the Fusion, and Carpe wasn't far behind. Prophet with 3. He's killed 4 players now on his own. And the Spitfire are coming through with this one. Prophet finds 5 kills on this Tracer. Everybody believes that's enough.
Prophet, one of the best DPS players in the league. He was the first player to get 10,000 eliminations total. He currently leads the league in elims, final blows, and hero damage. Originally he was a Tracer player, but Prophet has been able to show that he's top class on many other hero picks. Coming out of nowhere in late 2017, he won OG and Apex Season 4 as a rookie with GC Busan and received the Finals MVP award. Then moving on to Owl, he joined the London Spitfire with the rest of his teammates, and there he won the Stage 1 tournament and the inaugural season grand finals, where he again received a playoffs MVP award. In Season 2, his career stalled a little bit during GOATs on London, and then in Season 3, he was signed to the Seoul Dynasty, where he has clearly been the best player on the team. Seoul has only had moderate success, but they were runner-up in a couple stage tournaments and the Season 3 grand finals.
Hero that
you feel like Carpe can win the battle against.
This is pretty risky to play here because you don't have like outside high ground to escape to if you get jumped on. But it looks like the Boston Uprising are too busy trying to take the point. That's the Widow duel 1. Again, Philadelphia Fusion always going to come out on top. Striker though lands a big triple on the barrage there. The Graviton helping. Both supports are caught together. That's what they needed, but Carpe strikes in again. Striking down. Felix also being removed. Carpe, what are you doing? This is unbelievable. He turns around and gets on the point. Inkwai follows it up. How have they redone this? How do you retake a point like that, Philadelphia? You don't play by the rules ever.
Okay, honorable mentions. I'm just going to spit through these real fast to get through them. Hacksaw, the original Genji god, he got second place in several major tournaments and won a season of Korean Contenders before joining OWL. He was probably the best brig in the league that year, and he got Rookie of the Year, but he had pretty mediocre performances in Season 3 and then retired after that. Striker is often called the best tracer in the world, and he has won 2 OWL championships. But the problem with him is that he's too limited. He can't do a whole lot when his signature heroes are out of the meta. Leave. Known as the most flexible DPS player in the league, he's the only player on this list from China, and he has looked incredible his whole career, but he only got picked up in OWL in Season 3 due to his age, so he hasn't been around for as long as the other players on this list. Birdring. He's had a long career full of successes, but he isn't the superstar that he used to be. In 2017 and 2018, he was a top hit scan player, but he suffered a wrist injury in late 2018, and he's never been the same since. He did pretty good, actually, in the most recent season with Gladiators, but I would argue that Kester or Shu was actually more important to that win than Birdring was. And Sinatra. He technically had the best year of any Overwatch player in 2019, but he retired 2 years ago, so he can't really be the GOAT. Carpe is probably the best player to have never won a major. He's been very good ever since Season 1 of Overwatch League, on the Widowmaker, on the Tracer, on all the hit scan roles, but he's never won anything, so...
They look unstoppable at the moment. They're not going to be denied this capture still. Hammond's certainly going to try with the sound destruction comes through. What in the Lord's name was that? Oh my word, Void.
Moving on to tanks, first up we have Void. He should be recognized for his consistency across such a long period of time. He was on Kongdu Panthera in Apex, and he got several second and third place finishes before OWL. And then in OWL, he was on LA Gladiators at first. They were a top 5 team in Season 1 and Season 2. And then in Season 3 and Season 4, he joined Shanghai, which has utterly dominated the Eastern region and even the whole league.
Switch to a double sniper type of setup. That was filthy. All right, Gravitic Flux. A lot of people caught by that. Whoa! What? Are you kidding me? Was that a melee attack? It's like they were all felled. That's just insane. They were halted together by the looks of things. So I guess he just punches one of them, gets them all. I've never seen that ever. All right, as that is a 3-player Sigma melee.
Next up, we got Choi Hyobin, known for his Diva and his Sigma. Choi Hyobin was part of a middling Apex team in 2017, and then in 2018, he won Korean Contender Season 1 on X6 Gaming, and from that, he got noticed by Krusty, who was a legendary coach. Krusty brought Choi onto the San Francisco Shock, where they dominated Season 2 and Season 3. During this time, he was also on the 2019 South Korea World Cup team that finished 3rd place. In Season 4, Shock trended slightly downwards. They were middle of the pack, maybe slightly higher than that, but Choi still looked very good.
Sentence. There it is. Probably now can commit with the Graviton Surge and force of the sound barrier. No! What?
Oh, this is absurd.
Baby Bay, unbind Q. You're not going to get to use it anyway.
We're going to get to the bit, this one here. Look at this in slow motion. This is slowed down. I want you to pay attention again. Look at this flick, the 180. The most impressive aspect, pay attention to his defense matrix charge. It's not there. What? It's in the last moment, and it's instant. Full speed again. Look at this. What? Flick.
Next up, we got Fury, the hungriest OWL player. He holds the record for the most ultimates denied in a single series with 6, and he leads the league in ultimates denied with a whopping 93, beating the second place Choi Hyobin by 11. Fury was on an unremarkable Apex team in 2017, but he managed to get on Team Liquid and finished second in NA Contenders Season 0. From this, he was picked up onto the London Spitfire, where he had a breakout performance, winning a stage title and the grand finals. In Season 2, London struggled, but Fury consistently put on a show, denying enemy ultimates like Blizzards and Graviton Surges like no other player was. In Season 3, he got signed to the Philadelphia Fusion, where they were consistently the second best team in North America, getting runner-up in 2 out of 3 stage tournaments and finishing with the second best regular season record. In Season 4, he moved on to Washington Justice, which that team just could not pull it together despite all the talent on that team, but Fury still looked very, very good.
Is the objective, and Closer flies in at the last moment just to block, but drills down on the floor.
Drills down on the deck, Super brings down Crimzo as well, goes for the charge as well. Oh my word, he just pinned him against Gamsu. What in the Lord's name have I just witnessed?
Super with a 4K, he is feeling himself.
Okay, honorable mentions for Tank. Space is an incredible D.Va player who helped the LA Valiant and the LA Gladiators win a couple of stage tournaments, but I don't think he can be the GOAT because he doesn't have nearly enough title wins compared to other players on this list. But if you are only talking about Western players, Space is definitely my pick. Next up, we got Super and Smurf from San Francisco Shock. They could honestly be full-time starters on any other team, but they split their playtime on Shock based on the meta and team strategy, so I don't think it's fair to say that either of them are the greatest. Next up is Fearless, and he's probably the best Western player to touch the game. He's second overall for Primal Rage kills, despite the fact that he played on the 0-40 Shanghai Dragons in Season 1, and he wasn't even in Owl in Season 2. But unfortunately, his other tanks aren't nearly as good, and he's only been competing on top teams in the last 2 years. And next is Gesture. If this video was about the greatest duo, it would have to be Gesture and Prophet. Together, they are the duo that's played together the longest, and they have the most wins as a duo. I might have considered him in the past, but in the last 2 seasons, he's been unable to learn new heroes and ended up splitting playtime with other players.
Unbelievable. Michelle somehow survives that. All right, let's see it from Toby's perspective. This is ridiculous. Right over the side. Perfect play. What a save. It was dead and done if he does not pull that off. Toby.
First up is Toby, the original Lucio Boop God. He is the previous record holder for the most environmental kills in a series. In his early career, he dominated the game in Lunatic High, and at this time, he was by far and away the best Lucio player in the whole game. Not many other players had the skill to duel tracers like he did, and he was very smart about how he used Boop to not only get kills, but also disrupt the enemy main tanks in a way that no other player was doing. Then he joined the Seoul Dynasty in Season 1, and he hasn't really achieved the same greatness. He's been a solid player, and he's actually benched a bunch of players that were been brought in to replace him. Season 2 was more the same on Seoul, but on Season 3, Seoul got a few more additions, and they finished second place. In Season 4, Toby moved on to the Philadelphia Fusion, where he put up some pretty decent performances while their starter, Funny Astra, was struggling with visa issues. Toby hasn't been the best player in his role since 2017, but I thought he was worth mentioning for his early success and his ability to remain within the top 10 of main support players for 5 whole years.
How weak they are, right? He can just sit around the corner from his main tank and just kind of just peek over just a little bit. We can get this through Jonak's perspective.
That's it. That's it. Just sitting at the back doing the Macarena. For some reason, all of his opponents are dying.
Hey, he's, throwing out the hands, bro.
Jonak, the king of Zenyatta players, is the only player to have played every single map for his team. In 4 seasons of Overwatch League, Jonak has never been subbed out, not for strategical reasons, not for medical reasons. NYXL has never even signed another flex support player. Jonak plays all the time. In Season 1, he was the focal point of NYXL's strategy, and NYXL was dominant. They only dropped 6 games out of 40, they won 2 stage tournaments, they got runner-up in the other 2 stage tournaments. Later in that year, Jonak played on the South Korean World Cup team, where he got the MVP. That team didn't drop a map the whole tournament. In Season 2, NYXL was not the best team anymore, but Jonak was still putting up some crazy performances. They finished 3rd place. In Season 3 and Season 4, NYXL let go of their other top talent and signed a bunch of rookies that JJoNak was expected to captain, and honestly he did a pretty good job and kept NYXL at middle of the pack.
Munchkin looking around the outside, back to the middle there. Fleta, he's done okay on the Widow. Hasn't found as many shots as we've seen in the past.
All right, Riptire coming through. They're going to back off and see if they can locate it. They're going to find it, and he gets it!
Are you kidding me? Can this guy do more impressive things, man?
Ryu Jaehong, the MVP of Lunatic High. Ryu Jaehong was the original Honor God. He is the main inspiration for almost every flex support player who plays the game, including JJoNak himself. He won Apex twice, Season 2 and Season 3, and he received the MVP award both times. He also won the World Cup on Team South Korea in both 2016 and 2017. However, by the time Owl came around, he was only mediocre, and he retired after Season 2. Violet, an incredible flex support player known for his Zenyatta, that is definitely a big part of Shock's back-to-back championships in Season 2 and Season 3. Super himself has said on his stream that he thinks that Violet was the most valuable player on the team during that time. However, Violet didn't play at the highest level before Season 2, and in Season 4, Shock only finished 4th, and Violet was played in some really strange ways, often splitting playtime with his former rival Twilight, and sometimes even playing DPS. It was really weird. Next up is Moth, the main support player. He's technically the player with the most titles if you only count Overwatch League and Overwatch World Cup, but I don't think that he was the difference maker in these ones. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but I think he's one of the more replaceable parts of the teams that he's won with. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I knew this was gonna be a hard question to answer when I was getting into it, but nothing prepared me for just how hard. The more I looked into player history and stats, the more candidates I just kept finding. Each of these players on this list are something special. They do something different. They are the top in the world at one particular thing. That being said, it would kind of be a cop-out to go through this whole video and not pick someone. So, final answer. I think that the two front-running candidates are Fleta and Prophet, but I'm gonna have to give it to Fleta for his sheer dominance in the last 2 years. He finished top 2 in 6 out of 7 stage tournaments in the last 2 years, and even during Prophet's best years, he didn't have that kind of dominance. Even when Fleta was on worse teams, he was clearly the best part of them. He's been putting up crazy performances for 5 years, so I think that it has to be him. I am looking forward to Overwatch 2. Hopefully we can have this conversation again about that game in a couple years. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if I missed a player somehow that you think should have been included, please leave a comment and I will try to answer why I didn't include them. Alarm. Too young. That is the only way to describe Alarm, in my opinion. He was too young to join OWL. So he spent 2018 and 2019 in North American contenders, winning multiple titles, leading Fusion University on a 30-game win streak, which was the longest win streak of any team for a long time. He finally debuted in OWL in Season 3 on the Philadelphia Fusion, where they finished 2nd in 2 stage tournaments, and they finished 4th in the playoffs. In Season 4, Fusion had a lot of visa issues, and they couldn't get their best players to play, and they ended up finishing 9th. On November 7th, 2021, the Philadelphia Fusion announced that Alarm had unexpectedly passed away.